Hi folks, thank you very much for tuning into our little presentation here on how to match wines to your wedding. My name is Joseph Keats. I normally go by Joe. I work for Petersons Wines. We're based here in Singapore. Well, actually, we're based in Australia, but we have an office here in Singapore. That's where I am at the moment. It's a shop house on Emerald Hill Road, and we host tastings here every day. It is bucketing down outside, so I apologise if there's a bit of background noise. It's a good old Singapore rainstorm. What I'm going to do is introduce myself and Petersons to you, and then talk a little bit how I suggest you approach matching wines to your wedding. We would also invite you to come here for a tasting if that makes you more comfortable. So we host wine tastings here every day by appointment. So if you want to come in and try the wines, then we'll walk you through all the different samples, and you can try and visualize how they might go with the food that you're serving at your wedding. So I'm going to dive into the presentation now. Hopefully the slideshow plays its part. And at the end, I'll have another quick chat to you in person. Okay, so we want to make your wedding that little bit better. We'll see what we can do to elevate it a little. Now, whether it's a micro wedding or a larger wedding, we've got a pretty broad selection of wines and a hell of a lot of experience. Petersons has been making wines for 50 odd years. We're based in the Hunter Valley, 2 hours north of Sydney in Australia, and we opened up here in Singapore 5 years ago. Petersons has been awarded Best Small Winery in Australia, and if you haven't heard of us, we're 100% not offended, because we don't A, advertise, or B, sell our wine in shops, whether you're in Australia or here in Singapore. It's a pretty good one to understand, because it's nice to have something a little bit unique on your table for your wedding, and also means people won't be going, oh, I saw that one at cold storage, I know how much it costs, or anything like that. My personal experience, I've been working for Petersons for more than 12 years. I started with him in Australia, and then moved up to Singapore full-time about 2.5 years ago. And I've been working with food and beverage for nearly 30 years. I started off in New Zealand, where I'm from, when I was still at high school. In fact, the first place I worked at was a Singaporean restaurant, unbelievably, because I wound up here. And then I've worked all around the world, and I've been working pretty much exclusively with wine for the last 15 years out of those 30. I have a lot of experience in events, including a heck of a lot of weddings. So I know how it is from both sides of the bar. I'm going to try and use my experience as a sommelier, but also as somebody who's done a lot of events and been married myself, to help make this all a little bit easier for you. So let's have a look at what we can offer. Taking the stress out of it, there's a prime goal. A lot of people that aren't really comfortable with wine are really, really worried about the wine they serve at their wedding. And we know you want everything to be perfect on your wedding day. The good news is wine, believe it or not, is actually one of the easy things, because everyone likes having a drink. So just always remember, it's only wine. It's not rocket surgery. Okay, it's not that complicated if you know what you're doing to choose wines that are going to work well on the night. So don't stress. Okay. Wine is great for making people relax, and with a couple of guidelines, with a little bit of menu guidance, we can help you narrow down your choices and choose something that will work really well on your big day. If you haven't got the food sorted, I strongly suggest you organise the menu before you come to us for wine. If you're doing a more casual affair that's not a sit-down dinner, then cool, we can talk about what wines will work, and that's no problem. But if you are having a really nice sit-down dinner of whatever style, whether it's a couple of set courses or a buffet style or lots of courses, then that's all going to dictate the kinds of wines that we choose. And if we know the flavours and the type of menu you've got in mind, then it makes us much easier to help recommend the wine. You want the wine to be memorable, but not the main focus. Okay, so don't get too hung up on that. Don't think that everybody has to have a wow factor on, how far the wine's come to be served at your table, or how much a bottle costs. You are the main thing for the day. Okay? It is nice if the wine's got some nice, quirky little memorable things or a personal connection to you, but it's your day. And something that a lot of people don't cover that I think is really important, your service staff on the day. We will always make sure that you've got enough information to pass on to the staff, that when they're presenting the wines to your guests, they feel comfortable and confident, and that just makes it so much a better experience for your guests. Also, if the servers are feeling relaxed and confident in their role, they're going to be engaging in a really positive and nice way with your guests. And unfortunately, at your wedding, they're probably going to have more interaction with service staff than they are with you because you've got so many guests to split your time between. So you think it's crazy we want you to relax? Here's something that's really good. No wine on the planet, no matter how expensive, will please everybody. Once you get that into your head, you realize that everything is going to be okay. The other thing is, at a wedding, everybody's in a good mood. And once they've had a couple of glasses of wine, it will be the best tasting thing they've ever had. But there is not one single wine on the planet that everybody will enjoy. Everybody has their own individual preferences. So you don't need to worry if you have somebody say, oh, I didn't like the abalone, or I didn't like the Shiraz. That's okay. We don't expect everybody to like every food or every wine. But mostly people are too polite at a wedding to say that anyway. Now, one thing that we think is really good is having 2 different whites and 2 different reds. Since I've been in Singapore, I've had a lot of couples approach me, and quite often they're like, we just want a single red. Well, what about white wine? Most of the people at the wedding will probably drink red. Well, that's nice, but you still need white. Okay, even if it winds up being 90% red drunk on the night, I always suggest having white wine on offer. We suggest 2 white wines and 2 red wines. More than that can be confusing. Less than that, people have, again, their own personal tastes, and they might have a prejudice against a particular type of wine. So white wine is a really good example. The 2 most popular white wines sold are Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. The 2 white wines that people will most frequently say, I drink anything except for Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc, those exact same 2. So the 2 most popular, but the 2 most divisive wines. So if you only have one of those, then people might be miffed because they want white wine and they don't like that white wine. You've got a choice of 2, even the most unreasonable people will go, okay, I'll take the Sauvignon Blanc or whatever it might be. And also, of course, having 2 of each means you've got much greater scope for food pairing across a menu. Whereas if you've only got, if you say, I just want to get 1 wine, but I'm serving 7 dishes, unless it's a very similar menu, you're not going to get a wine that's going to cover all that well. So again, if we know the food, we can choose a wine that's not going to overpower it or clash with the flavors, right? So let's have a look at the actual food matching guidelines. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth here because there are a million variations. Okay, I'm just going to talk more broadly about the way we approach it so that when we do look at your menu, we can choose things that will fit really nicely. So flavors, if you just tell me, oh, we're having beef and fish, that doesn't really tell me anything, okay? That's just beef is not enough. I mean, it could be a black pepper beef, it could be a rare eye fillet. If we start looking at specific flavors, cooking techniques, herbs, things like that, then I've got a really good idea of how to start to narrow down the search for a wine that'll work really well for you, okay? But also, okay, the dish comes with garlic. Is it really dominant flavor or is it subtle? Now, most of you will be liaising with the venue or the chefs on your menu. You might not know details. Okay, you might not have. You might have tried the food, but might not remember in enough detail to tell me if the garlic is dominant or subtle, and that's okay. Okay, if we don't know, we can take our best guess. And luckily, because I do have a fair bit of experience doing this, I can help us avoid any little pitfalls. But the more information we have on the food, the more feedback you can give me, then the easier the job is to choose wines that will be amazing for the day. Now, if we are serving a lot of different dishes, what we'll tend to do is go for a good all-round wines. And if we're serving a more limited menu, something that's a couple of courses, or you might be doing alternate drop with beef and fish or whatever. If you're doing the alternate drop, then we'll look at specific wines to match the food that you're serving. But if we're doing a really broad range of dishes, then cool, we'll look at all-round wines that will sit nicely across the food in general. So when I said make it memorable, again, you're the attraction, not the wine. But in 20 years, it'd be really nice if you can instantly recall the wine that was served at your wedding, if you had some kind of personal connection to it. In terms of what we do here, it's great because you can come and meet the staff that work for the actual winery, and you can visit our little home here in Singapore and Emerald Hill, and maybe in future years, bring your friends down here for a visit as well. So whether it's our wine or somebody else's, I always think it's much better if you've got some kind of personal connection to it. Maybe it's from the wine region you visited when you were proposed to, or another place you visited on holiday and you just love the local wines. Okay, but for me, that's a really cool way to approach it. Makes it a little bit more personal. Now, some wines will keep for a long time and some wines won't. So if you want wines you can open that are the same wine served at your wedding, but you want to open on your 10th wedding anniversary, we've got wines that can do that. A lot of people like to give bottles as gift to their guests so that later on down the track, their guests at home can open a bottle and maybe take a photo and tag you in it on Instagram and say, hey, hope you guys are doing well, remembering your wedding, what a great night, something like that. And a lot of people, our membership in Australia spans 3 generations now. We've got grandparents, parents, and grandchildren that are all old enough to drink that are members of our wine club. And what a lot of our members have done is brought wines that are from their children's birth year, and then they'll open it when the child's old enough to drink. Again, not everyone is going to be drinking well at that kind of age, but we can recommend the ones that are if you're interested in doing something like that. Now, one thing that's really good, if you've got a big wedding and you've got composite tables where there's going to be guests sitting with maybe a stranger on the left or right, then if the staff have come up with a couple of little good facts about the wine, there's a good starting point because nearly everybody is going to have a glass of wine in their hand. So this is the kind of information that we will pass on to the venue so that your serving staff can say, this is a Hunter Valley Shiraz and Petersons has been judged the best small winery in Australia. Okay, just a couple of little snippets. They don't have to read an entire library of information to them, but those are the kind of things that can get strangers talking at your wedding. So a bit more about the service staff. Really make sure that the staff have good info on the wine. Okay, so a good venue will do this, but sometimes good venues, if it's a big event, particularly as some weddings can be, they might not brief part-time staff as well as they could. So we will give you all the information you need, make sure it's passed on to the staff, because whoever you're dealing with, an events manager, an owner, whoever it might be, they're probably not the person that your guest is going to be speaking to on the night. Okay, it's going to be a waiter or a waitress, and you want them feeling relaxed and confident and also knowledgeable about what they're serving. Now, when it comes to service timings, this is stuff that a good venue will cover with you well before the wedding. Everyone's different. You will have your preferences on this. Some weddings are going to be like, just unleash all of the booze at the start. I want everybody mixing and having a good time. Other people might be like, don't serve any alcohol until this point, and then we'll only serve the sparkling, and then we won't serve the still wines until people are sat down for dinner. And we don't want people getting too messy because I've got cousins that are really noisy, or whatever it might be in your situation. So if you have that all organized with the venue beforehand, then it's very easy for the service staff, but it always pays to reiterate that on the day. Now, you're going to be busy. So this is a good job to delegate to a bridesmaid or a best man, somebody like that. Just have a little run sheet saying 2 o'clock bubbly, 3 o'clock sit down for lunch, or whatever it might be at your event. If you can have one of your party on top of that instead of just relying on the venue, it means that things are going to flow, no pun intended, the way you want them to. Okay, so some wines that we call crowd pleasers, they're really good for a wide array of foods, or in the case of some of our sparkling wines, while people are standing around before or after the service, however your day is structured, having a nice, gentle sparkling wine that's not too dry, not too sweet, is a really good way to keep people entertained. We do have a really broad range of wines. Even though all the wines come from one family, we have 3 wineries in the family. One of them specializes in sparkling wines. We've got a pretty broad range of bubblies. And that branch of the family has made sparkling wine for more than 300 other wineries in Australia. So they're pretty good at what they do. And as I mentioned before, Petersons has been judged best winery in Australia. Here in Singapore at any one time, we have 25 or so different wines for you to choose from. Okay, so even though we're only one supplier, the wines are all of very high quality and we've got a really good range. And something I touched on briefly before, we have a sale or return option that we basically only use for weddings. The last thing you want to do is run out of alcohol at your wedding. Okay, so one thing we offer that really helps with that is we'll say, look, whatever you don't use on the night, you can return to us for a full refund. Now, the bottles do have to be in good condition, but this is really, really useful because here in Singapore, I've had a lot of people come and say to me, we just want to use red wine, or we'll just get this much. I always say, look, go big. okay, we can refund it, so long as the bottles haven't been put in ice. Okay, any bottles that have been put in ice, the labels will be damaged, so obviously I can't resell them. And so long as the venue has kept any remaining wine at a good temperature, wine sensitive to heat. So as long as I've done that, we're happy to take back anything and refund the wine to you. So that just takes one stress off. I mean, the last thing you want is for 9 p.m. on your wedding night to get a tap on your shoulder from the venue manager to say, we've got one bottle left of red wine. Okay, that's awkward. Now, I can help you estimate with fairly disturbing accuracy how much wine you're likely to drink at your wedding, just because I've been doing it for a very long time. But I always say go a little bit over the top, and if you can refund it, great. A lot of the time people do have leftover wine and then don't bother sending it back to us. They're like, look, we had an after party the following day, or we just put it in our cellar to drink later, or whatever it might be. But if you are worried about balancing cost versus the terror of running out, we can help with that. So thank you very much for tuning into our little presentation. Hopefully it was a little useful for you. I know I didn't go into specifics on matching wine with food, but there's an infinite amount of combinations there. So when you chat to us with your menu, we can help you choose exact wines. So whether you want to do that over the phone or email, or you want to come into our shop house here, we're very open to any of those. So I'm just going to duck out of the slideshow now and wrap up. So in short, relax, everything will be okay because wine is involved. We'll try and make it as easy as we can for you, and whether or not you wind up choosing our wine or somebody else's wine, hopefully we can give you a little bit of guidance to make you feel more relaxed about the whole process. So all the best for the big day. It will go well, don't worry. And a big thank you to the team at Delegate for all their hard work for organising this too. Cheers, guys. Have a wonderful time.